earlier. I was going to use this thing quicker. Yeah, I got brownie points this week too because I stopped at Kroger's out here. Man, they got some good buys. They had their flyers on sale for $5 a dozen. Get brownie points with the wife, you know. Look, honey, what I bought you for Easter. Of course, I almost got in trouble. Gotta be careful, guys. I can't this much getting my head handed to me. I called the wife I was out there just to see is there anything else at the grocery store you need. And I forgot she was working Friday afternoon, so she didn't answer her phone. Well, I thought I had hung up. I hadn't. So it's recording message. So I'm checking out, and the girl says, "Oh, that's so sweet. You buying flowers for your girl." I said, "Yeah, sure." I said, "For $5, I'll buy them. I'll spend $5 on." She goes, "Oh, I'm sure you'd have bought them if they'd have been 20." No, she probably not worth that much. And I'm going. Then when I got home, gave her the flyers and all that, she's going, "Well, I saw where you left a voice message, but it was so low I really couldn't hear it." And I'm going, "Oh, I didn't mean anything, honey. I forgot it was on." Like, oh, I'm glad she didn't hear that other comment. It would. I would have burned my coupons earned with the flyers, right? Okay. Okay. Now, yes, it magically appears. It's magically delicious. Again, we have the data here. It says prepare a flexible budget for Toy Story. Again, all they're asking you to do is, take that revenue there. It says based on 360 units was actual, and then your budget is 400. Well, just convert a budget of 360 units. And again, if we sold 400 units and the budget's at 60,000, then obviously when we convert that to 360, you just get a easiest way. And I don't know why he didn't do this, but 300. Easiest way for me to do it, I'd take 60,000 divided by 400, and I assume that's $15. And then 15 times 360 is 54,000. Now again, I'm just doing this in my head, looking at it there. But again, I would do it at price per unit. All your variable costs, get a per unit cost. And take the 9,000 divided by 400, which again, I guess 150 wasn't that first one, sales price. Whatever. Yeah, and you can do it the mathematics way you want it, or you can simply take the 9,000 divided by 400, then multiply by 360. But you get your variable cost, and you get your total variable cost subtracted. You get contribution margin of 27,000. Notice the fixed costs stay at 3, 6, and 6. Within a relevant range, remember, by definitions, fixed cost does not change with level of volume. So we use whatever is on the budget there and come up with operating profit here of 12,000. Again, that's fairly simple, right? Basically what you're doing when you make a flexible budget, you're converting sales and variable costs. Fixed costs should be zero change. Okay. 44 following that says, we'll take that numbers we got in 43 and let's do a sales activity volume. Now remember, sales activity is simply the difference between the flexible budget and the master budget. And we're getting sales volume activities there. And typically, if your sales volume is less, and again, we sold, master budget was based on 400 units, flexible budget's based on 360 units, we know our sales dollar variance then is going to be unfavorable. Typically, our manufacturing cost variances are going to be favorable. And again, remember, grain of salt here, it's not because that we were more efficient, better, whatever. It's simply because, guys, at 360 units as opposed to 400 units, you should use less direct labor, materials, variable overhead, marketing, administrative. Now again, not always, they're not always favorable. You can have, you know, in that case, you really got a problem, right? If you got fewer units and you've got unfavorable cost variance, something's out of whack. And I would look real carefully is, you know, again, is my standard unrealistic or something? But notice again, on our fixed cost, should not be any variances. Those should be zeros. Because again, we're using the same numbers. By the way, your flexible budget, what happens if we had like 420 units? Well, then you'd have a favorable sales revenue and you'd probably have unfavorable manufacturing costs. But again, would that be that we did something wrong? No. You sell more units, you're going to have more materials, labor, and overhead, right? Yeah. Any questions about this? What we're doing? Whatever. Now, the next step, what they did, is going to 45 and says, okay, let's put our profit volume variance like the one in 16.5. That's where you get this one unsightly mess of information. Get to where we can scoot up there. Notice again, the column 1 is your actual, copied straight from the book. Your right-hand column is your master budget. Notice the flexible budget, the sales activity variance, you're basically taking problem 44, and that's your last 3 columns in 45. And then, you know, flexible budget, sales activity variance is going to be the difference between flexible and master budget. Again, we're just comparing the different other variances there. Your sales price variance, again, is simply a difference between your actual and your flexible budget. Now, what that's telling me is we sold 360 units, but we sold them at our actual price was greater than our standard price per unit for whatever reason. And then our manufacturing variances, our variable costs, you got labor, materials, and overhead. And again, I'm used to saying it, materials, labor, and overhead. But anyway, again, notice we had unfavorable in direct labor, favorable in materials, and variable overhead. And again, notice with most of these variances, and we're going to get into these manufacturing variances today, does not tell you good, bad, whatever. Do not take favorable as good, unfavorable as bad. Again, most of the time when dealing with the variance report and all that, they don't tell you why. What they do is help narrow your focus as to ask, well, why? And start where to investigate and find out, well, what do we need to look at here? You know, what is, and again, most companies, in real world terms, most companies are going to have some type of, what's the word I want? Tolerance. Meaning that, you know, if the variance is pretty close, that they're pretty much close, the variance is not that much, they're probably not going to spend a whole lot of time investigating. Now, if it gets beyond their tolerance limits, then yes, it's going to be investigated, whether favorable or unfavorable. Unfavorable, we tend to say, oh yeah, you know, we want to find out why are we spending more than we thought. But on the other hand, you also investigate favorable because, you know, okay, again, first thing you want to ask, is my standard realistic? And, you know, that may be the reason for it right off the beginning. But if it is realistic, well then why is this favorable? What are we doing that's correct? So not only can we, you know, keep it up and build upon it, but can we take it to other departments, other units, and come up with this? And again, you know, success breeds success. As we say in sports, you know, the hardest championship you win your first one, the second one, you know, you know how to act when you get there type thing. And so, also manufacturing, we do look at that. Again, we're going to come on these. And same thing with your marketing and administrative variances. We're just categorizing it, these columns, and just showing the difference between our flexible budget and our actual to tell us, okay, what's going on while we're doing it. Now again, that notice like with administrative, the difference between flexible and the actual was 300 unfavorable. But if we'd have compared it to the master budget, it would have been 0, right? And by just using one point in time, by using just the master budget, you can make some assumptions that are really not so. You're not comparing apples and apples and apples and oranges when using just that one level. You want to try to make your budget amount close to the actual so that you can compare apples and apples. Okay, this makes it, hopefully these numbers look familiar for the few who turned it in.
Do you have to total like the major variance, marketing, and administrative variance and price? Do you have to? I didn't put a contribution margin to an operating profit total.
Not really. I mean, it's not, you know, that's 6 and 1/2 another. Am I going to mark it wrong? Probably. But the thing of it, that just makes it neat. I'll be honest with you, this report, and again, it's management, what they like, and what they want. And you'll find no matter what company you go to, they're going to have format their own report. They're going to have pre-print forms out. And once you're on with this computerized homework, you think, God, I have to do this again. Okay. And look back at my notes here. Most of these standards, by the way, what we're going to look at, I mean, you know, a total cost standard. I mean, you've got actual costs times actual units to get an actual price. And then you've got a standard price times the standard number of units that you take. And you know, what we're doing, we're measuring input to output is what we're looking at here. And so, you know, what we're looking at is, well, what we actually spend versus what should we have spent according to standard, our budgets. And we're going to do that with materials, we're going to do it with labor, we're going to do it with overhead. Comparing them. Now, in coming up with our standards, like we talked a little bit the other day, when you come up with your material standards, obviously the types of material we're dealing with, obviously quantity, the amount of material you order is going to go in, and the quality of it, knowing that the higher the quality, generally the higher the price. Works like that. And obviously the price per unit that we're dealing with, coming up with it. And again, how do you come up with it? Well, what specifications do we have for our product? What materials have to be in it? Again, it can come from just what our engineers have designed it. It could be some kind of governmental regulations. You have to do X, Y, and Z. You say, what do you mean? Try building a car and don't put a catalytic converter on it now. Got to, right? Pollution, all environmental concerns. You do have concerns like that. You know, and you get this by observation, inquiry, what goes into it, how much. And again, you can come up with how much units and quality to build with the bill of materials. Move that out of the way. But again, get our cost, quality, and projected sales price. Now, as I said there, our total variance, we're comparing input to output here. Actual quantity times our actual price compared to the standard quality and standard price multiplied. And that's the total variance. Now you can do this, again, for materials, labor, and overhead, and we will. Now, how we're going to do that typically is, what I like to do is the DAD system. Might as well just draw that up there. We'll show it nice and neat on play pretty here in a minute. But this will work for all variable costs. It works for all variable costs. And that means direct materials, direct labor, variable overhead. It will not work on fixed overhead. That you just have to memorize, so to speak. And then that's not that hard, don't get caught up. But in coming up with, you know, how do you spell DADS? D-A-D-S, right? Very simple. Difference times actual and difference times standard. But now we're going to take that total variance on materials, labor, and overhead, and we're going to divide them in two. We're going to have a price variance and efficiency variance. Now, labor, we don't call it a labor price variance, we call it a labor rate variance, and a variable overhead rate variance. But it's a price variance. That's what it is. So this was always going to be your rate or price variance. And this is going to be your always the efficiency variance of the two. And the two combined together, added together, is your total variance. Total materials, total labor, total variable overhead variance. Now, part of the problem people have with doing these variances and all that is, one, we got to make sure we're talking the same things. And when I talk about materials, it's difference in price per unit.
difference in price per unit, times the actual quantity purchased. You know, difference in price per unit. Per unit times actual quantity purchased. Now, difference in what? Standard price per unit, actual price per unit. Now, a real tip off here. If your actual price is more than your standard price, it's going to be unfavorable. If your standard price is more than actual, that's going to be favorable. So it doesn't matter what standard minus actual, actual minus standard. It doesn't really matter. Just get the difference. Just realize that if standard's more, in other words, if we're going to the movie tonight and I budget $5 and I go there and it's $7 to get in, I don't like that. That's unfavorable. But if I budget $5 and tonight's $1 night and I get in for $1, I like that. So we always compare what we actually spend with what our standard is. Anytime standard's more, that's not good. Or let's rephrase it. That's unfavorable. And anytime actual's less than standard, I like it. That's favorable. Okay? Now, who would we hold responsible for the material price variance, by the way? Who do you think would we hold responsible typically?
Purchasing department.
Yeah, purchasing department. Purchasing department. Why? Who goes out and buys it, right? Now, the efficiency, material efficiency variance, that's going to be the difference in quantity times the standard price per unit. Yeah, difference in quantity. This could be inches, feet, gallons, ounces. You know, whatever we're talking, whatever units our materials are in. Whatever we're talking about. You know, amount used, quantity, total quantity used. You know, difference in total quantity, standard. And again, this is where you sometimes got to calculate. You say, what do you mean? And we'll work a problem at the end of the chapter showing this a little bit how the wording is. But you know, let's say it takes 2 foot of materials for every unit we produced. Well, we produced 1,000 units. We should have used 2,000 feet, right? We actually used 1,980 foot. Well, right off the bat, is that going to be a favorable materials efficiency variance or an unfavorable? Favorable. We used less materials than we thought we would, for whatever reason. Again, remember, variances don't give you the reasons. They just give you where we start asking questions. Well, why? Why did we only use 1,980 foot as opposed to 2,000? Right? But we would take that difference in quantity, 2,000 minus 1,980, that's 20 foot times whatever our standard price per foot was. And that would be our efficiency variance. Now, who's in charge of the efficiency variances, material efficiency variances? Who would we generally hold responsible here?
Manufacturing.
Yeah, production, manufacturing, production department. Whatever department that was we're dealing with here. Now, this one materials you got to be a little bit careful. To combine them and say total material variance is such and such, just adding our materials price variance with material efficiency variance. Why? Why can't, sometimes we cannot do this and say our total material variance was X amount. There's a logical reason. Anybody pick up on it?
Because the efficiency variance isn't based on the market price.
No. Notice we don't use a market price here at all with the efficiency. Difference in quantity standard price per unit. So market price rather than, now what I'm trying to get at is, what about the quantity here? The amount purchased of raw materials may not equal the amount used, right? Sometimes we buy more and our raw materials inventory goes up. Sometimes we buy less. Why? Because we already got some in there. And we use more of that. So you got to be careful. The amount purchased does not always equal the amount used. And so you got to be a little bit, with labor you can combine the two and say your total labor variance is X amount because you either use it or lose it on labor, right? So you got to be careful too. And notice here, we said the purchase variance, materials purchase variance, price variance. We're holding the purchasing department responsible. Here we're holding production department. And by the way, and we'll discuss this because a lot of times when we're doing these variances, we'll say, well, what would be a reasonable explanation why you have this type of variance? Notice that we can have our variances at cross purpose with each other. You say, what do you mean? Well, what's the goal of the purchasing department? Real generally.
Buy cheap.
By the less cost, right? I mean, basically that's how they're going to be evaluated. You know, how much materials you're buying at what price. And we want to get the lowest price. Manufacturing, they're to produce as many output as they can from the input, right? Now, can you see where a price variance, a favorable price variance, may lead to an unfavorable efficiency variance? How could that happen? How could a favorable price variance lead to an unfavorable efficiency variance? Can anybody? This is where you have to think. I just think, well, what if?
Cheap materials.
And what happens?
It takes more to make glass.
Right, you buy inferior. You ever bought something, you bought it because, well, it's a great price and all that, and come find out it didn't last hardly at all? And you had to go out and buy another one? Well, your price variance may have been pretty good, right? You got it cheap. But when you start using more and more of it, your overall variance for materials may not be positive. So, and this is where you got to be a little bit careful on that, because I guarantee you, purchasing department is, hey, these were quality goods, we got a good price on them. It's your clowns over there that don't know how to use them. And they're sloughing off, not paying attention to what's going on. Again, you know, why do you have an unfavorable efficiency variance? Poor quality materials is definitely one reason why. It can be one reason. Again, I'm not saying that's what it is, because every situation is generally different, and generally there's multiple reasons things happen, right? There's not too many times you go in, right or wrong, that's the reason, boom, you know. Sometimes it is. You know, it makes it easy, but it could be that workers were taking longer breaks, weren't paying much attention to the equipment, materials got fouled up in the machines because they weren't paying attention. Could be the equipment was faulty. You know, it just wasn't doing right, it wasn't calibrated right. We had to scrap a bunch of the materials because it wasn't done correctly. The report could have been written wrong. It said they wanted say we're doing timber, we're doing lumber, boards, and they wanted it 2.5 inches wide when somebody wrote it up as 2 3/4. So I mean, you know, it could be anything. But again, coming up with that variance leads us to start asking, well, what's going wrong here? What's the problem? Or what's going right here? You know, there are times whenever A fits into B and fits into C and zip, zam, zoom, everything works perfect. And we like those times. Don't happen too often, but, you know, we might want to look and see. Does that make sense? Now, you can't, you know, that's doing the DADS system. That's just what I was raised on. It just makes me easier. Now, remember, what you got to do, a lot of times they're not going to be nice to you in problems. And I may not be nice on tests. I may not say, oh, here is the price per unit, and here's how many units we use, and this is what was budgeted. And so you just go a couple of calculations, zip, zam, boom, there it is. It may be that I say, oh, here's the actual purchase price for X amount of units. Well, guess what? You got to divide to get a price per unit. Or I may say, well, here's the standard cost per unit, and and we're supposed to use 2 foot per every unit we make. Well, what was the standard quantity? Well, you'd have to multiply to get the standard quantity used. That should have been used. Okay? So all you got to do, remember, reword the problems and either multiply or divide to come up with the information in the format you need to make this easy. And that's what a lot of it is just restating stuff into the format you need. You know, it's like we talked with intermediate a little bit and also in the principles class. They look at it and they say, well, wait a minute, the formula doesn't want that. I said, yeah, you got to calculate it and come up with the format you need. Don't sit there and wait for somebody to give it to you. You know, it's there. You just got to think. And again, in real world terms, when you're on the job, start learning. Okay, I know this number's here somewhere. It may not be jumping right out at me. How do I calculate to get it? That's all auditing is, guys. Some of you may be taking auditing, right? A lot of auditing is just logic. Well, I know this has got to lead to this. Well, okay, this should lead to this amount. If it don't, why doesn't it? Analytical analysis and auditing, that's exactly what you're doing. Coming up with all that ratio analysis, well, this is what it should be. Yeah. Well, why not? That's a little bit of what we're doing here. Okay? Now, you can do the fork method. Either method will work. The problems of a fork, if you want to make it look like a real fork, since I ate all that food this weekend. And basically, what you have here is, this is going to be actual times actual. Actual price per unit times actual quantity. Whether it's labor or overhead, materials does not matter. And over here is going to be standard times standard. Standard price times standard quantity. And in the middle is going to be actual price times standard quantity. Now, here, the difference in these two numbers is your price variance. This is your efficiency variance. That's another easy way how to calculate this and come up with it. And again, both of them added together is your total variance. Now, by the way, remember, it's just like debits and credits, favorable and unfavorable. If they're both unfavorable, you can add them together. If they're both favorable, you can add them together. But if one's favorable and one's unfavorable, then you got to subtract to get the total variance. Okay? Again, they act just like debit and credit. Like add, unlike subtract. This makes sense. Well then, let's do one on materials. Find an easy one on that. Look at 30. Good man. Okay, look what we got here. We got, how you pronounce this? Bumster Corporation, I assume. Alexis, you'll be the pronunciation expert. Is that Bumster? Okay. We got the actual cost here. We got actual quantity of direct materials used was 7,500. We got actual cost of direct materials used of 98,550. Standard price per unit of direct materials is 1260. Flexible budget for direct materials is 89,775. Now, I'll give you a tip right off the bat. Since they don't say anything, the amount of materials purchased, the amount of materials used is the same. Now, in real world, that's not always so, like I said earlier. Now, in this case, since the amount purchased and the amount used is the same, there was no change. And you say, how do you know that? Well, they don't mention it. And he's also wanting to talk about a total variance or something like that. So, I would assume it would be. Again, another way that he should have put in here is that there was no change in the amount of beginning materials inventory. And then we would know the amount purchased, amount used was same, okay? The beginning inventory and ending inventory would be the same amount, same quantity. Okay. Now it says prepare a short report for management showing dumpsters, direct materials price and efficiency variances. Now again, you can do the fork approach, you can do DA, we'll do both. We'll do both, but you know, if we want to make it nice and fancy and draw pictures for them, since they give us amounts right off the bat, what was actual times actual? This is real hard. What's actual times actual? What? 98,550. Yeah. Okay. What was standard times standard?
$89,775.
89,775. Now, by the way, overall material variance going to be favorable or unfavorable right at this point? Huh?
Unfavorable.
Unfavorable, right? Actual's more than same. By the way, that's how you know where these individual variances are. The number to the left is more, then it's going to be unfavorable. The number to the right's more, it's going to be favorable. One way to know. A little hint you might want to remember. What about this actual inputs times standard price? How much was that?
$94,500.
94,500, right? And so the difference here is what, 4,050? And over here it's what?
4725.
How much?
4725.
4775?
25.
25, excuse me. Okay? Now, is that favorable? Is the price variance unfavorable or favorable?
Unfavorable.
And efficiency variance?
Unfavorable.
Unfavorable. And we do one more. And overall, we could say it's what, 8,775, since materials amount of materials purchased, amount of materials used, same. We say total material variance would be the two. Now, normally you don't want to combine those materials because again, amount purchased, amount used may be different. Now, again, what we've done is we've explained, what we try to do is give a little bit further explanation. Overall, we know that we spent $98,550 on materials when our standard said we should have spent $89,775. So we spent $8,775 more. Well, why? Well, $4,050 of it was because of a price variance. $47.25 was because of an efficiency variance. And again, we use more units. Now, you say, well, how would you do DADS on this problem since we don't have everything? If I was going to do DADS, I would calculate a couple things. First of all, what's the average price we paid, the actual price we paid per unit? How would we get that? I mean, I know my standard price per unit was what, $12.60? What's actual?
Do
Huh?
98,550 divided by 7,500.
And that gives me what? 13.14. So I paid 54 cents more per unit. And again, I don't think it tells what type of units we're talking about. But I paid 54 cents more, right? And I bought 7,500 units, right? So what's 7,500 times 54 cents?
4,050.
I'm hoping it's 4,050. And I know this is unfavorable because my actual price per unit was more than what I budgeted. Now again, one of the first things I would ask is the 1260 realistic? Did the price of the market go up to where my standard 1260 isn't really realistic? That there ain't no place you could have found it for 1260? Or is it because we didn't do a good job of buying the amount the quantities needed to get the reduced price per unit? Again, quantity, more you buy, the generally cheaper it is. Or did we not do a good bidding process? Did we not go put it out for open bid? I mean, and I won't tell you what companies, but some of the companies that I know of in this area, I know one company found out they were buying a lot of stuff out of Cincinnati, Ohio, when they could have got out of Columbus, Ohio, at about 25% of what they'd been paying. Now, why were they doing that? What do you think why they were doing it? In other words, why were they paying 4 times what they could have got it for?
Someone wanted to go to Cincinnati.
Huh?
Said someone wanted to go to Cincinnati.
Well, if somebody wanted to go to Cincinnati. No, they weren't going there. There was a little thing called a kickback. They found out that the company in Cincinnati was giving a lot of favors and things. That's why most companies do not allow gifts to employees, because of little things like that. You know, my dad was a maintenance foreman at the power plant years ago when Moses was a corporal. And Christmas time, a lot of the coal companies, because he made sure the coal equipment for the coal yard was operating, all that. My dad would bring home a lot of fifths of bourbon and stuff, because they'd come in, here you go, Hey, and he had no decision making whatsoever, so I don't think there was an ethical. Probably did not follow the company policy, but ethical, he was not saying buy from this company, buy from that coal company. But he gave a lot of Christmas gifts people got were fifths of whiskey that somebody given him, re-gifting. I don't know if that's appropriate or not. It was better than him drinking all of it, let me tell you. And I was too young for him to share, unfortunately. But it didn't stop me from sticking it. But woe to when he found out. No, I know you didn't. But the thing about it is, I would want to know why did we pay 54 cents more. And I would go to my purchasing department. If I'm management, I'm going, well, why? Again, those variances don't tell you the answer. They give you, why do we pay more? Is there a good explanation? Maybe it would what could this be right now? In real world, if this went on right now, what would be a rational explanation? Probably a very good explanation of why that we paid 54 cents more. And I guarantee you this is happening in the real world right now. No ideas? When I say it, you're going to go, oh yeah, right. Delivery charges. Price of fuel so expensive? Why do you think your groceries are going up in the grocery store, guys? Part of it is just the pure price, the increase in product, but a lot of it takes diesel to get it there, right? And most companies now have a set delivery charge in addition to the sales price of the product. Well, this cost we're talking about, that's what it cost me to get it to my door. So I may have to pay, I might have paid to pay a 75-cent per unit delivery charge. Well, guess what? I actually was paying less than my standard amount, but the delivery charge made it unfavorable. Again, this is why we want to start looking, find out what's going on. Does that make sense? Or I know what if and out the yin yang, but that's what you do with these things. You want to find out. Now this right here is how I would have got doing a difference times actual. Difference in the unit price times actual quantity purchased. And like I say, I like that because I get to see these numbers. Now, obviously, they didn't tell me. It says the budgeted amount. So, I've got the actual quantity used to 7,500. How in the world would I come up with the standard quantity? Any ideas? I got standard quantity of 7,500. Do what, ma'am?
Divide the budget, the flexible budget by the price,
What do you get?
7125.
7125. Again, they tell me that the flexible budget was what, 89,775. If I divide that by $12.60 a unit, I should have used 70. I mean, how they get that 89,775? They must have taken 7125 times $12.60 a unit, right? Again, learn to work backwards with information they give you. And so I come up with a difference here of what, 375 foot or units, whatever, feet, ounces, gallons, whatever we're talking about here, right? So I used more than what I said I would, times the standard price of $12.60, and when we take 375 times $12.60, what do we get? 47.25. So again, hopefully it comes out correctly what we calculated, a bit better. And again, the question be asked, why my product? You know, here over here I'm asking my purchasing department, why are we paying more? Here I'm asking my production department, what happened? Why do we use more? Now again, it can be all kinds of different reasons. Unlimited reasoning. You could be, well, we had some inferior quality goods. Now it could be the purchasing department had set the standards, and that's why they will write very precise requirements of when we purchase, what we need, quality we need, and all that. But hey, things happen, right? You ever bought something and it just wasn't what you thought it was going to be? Yeah, it happened. Or it could be, again, equipment failure. Could be that this process is once you start, you can't stop. We had a power outage. Transformer blew at the plant. And guess what? We had to scrap all of it, start over again. Could be. You know, again, just because it's unfavorable doesn't mean you cut the throats of your production people. It could be a very legitimate reason why. Like that. Or it could be, hey, equipment failure. Guys, get us some new, these units you're asking us to use are pretty worn out. And things happen when you know in your personal life, if your car is 10, 15 years old, it tends to break down more than a brand new one, right? Things happen. Things happen. And it could be that. Or it could be, again, could be the workers weren't paying attention. You know, they got arguing about who's going to win NCAA, and they forgot, and it ran over. And like I say, I probably told you this before, by my earliest memory in my life, I can still remember that taffy machine down in Gatlinburg slinging taffy. He got it too loose, and those arms were, you know how them arms twist that taffy? It was shooting, it looked like an episode of I Love Lucy. I mean, it was shooting taffy off the walls. Everything. People were just standing there that evening, standing around that, just laughing their heads off. The boss was chewing his adult at that time, but was probably a college-age kid that supposedly had been operating that taffy machine. And guess what? All that taffy got scrapped. Materials, efficiency, variance would have been unfavorable. Could possibly been that. Could have been if we are making something like soup or something, we put too much pepper in it, or the wrong spice. I will tell you personally, I had a friend in high school. She made us peanut butter cookies, and she made them. She left out the peanut butter.